Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today. If you're a focused learner trying to completely nail neuroanatomy for your upcoming O-level biology exams, you are exactly where you need to be. Today, we're decoding the ultimate biological computer, the human central nervous system. Specifically, we're diving deep into the mysteries of the brain's gray and white matter. Mixing these two tissues up is a super common trap, and knowing their exact roles, well, that could literally be the difference between a pass and a distinction. So let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll build your understanding step by step, starting with the brain's computer system, zooming in on microanatomy, mapping locations in the central nervous system, discovering exactly why the brain folds, and finishing up with the keys to ace your exam. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the brain's computer system. This is where we lay down the absolute foundational framework for everything we'll cover today. To really get gray and white matter, we've got to start macro. The central nervous system, or the CNS, is made up of two main parts, your brain and your spinal cord. Think of the CNS as your body's ultimate main control center. Its whole job is receiving, processing, and responding to every bit of information coming from your entire body. To truly visualize how the CNS works, I want you to imagine it as a highly sophisticated computer system. We've got gray matter acting as the processor. It's the part crunching information and actually making the decisions. Then we have white matter acting as the network cables. This is your communication highway, transmitting all that data incredibly fast. So it's the processor versus the cables. Keep that core analogy locked in your head as we zoom in a bit closer. Moving right along to Section 2, microanatomy, gray versus white, let's see how our computer analogy holds up at the cellular level. Let's look at the precise hardware of that gray matter. When we zoom all the way in, we see specific cellular components: neuron cell bodies, dendrites, and unmyelinated axons. Now, notice what's totally missing here. There's an absolute absence of a fatty myelin sheath wrapped around these axons. Because the tissue lacks that fatty layer, it physically appears gray. That's the literal reason behind the name and exactly why this area serves as the central processing hub. On the flip side, check out the white matter components. See that really thick, visually distinct layer hugging the axon? That is the fatty myelin sheath. That sheath is exactly what gives white matter its whitish color. And honestly, it brilliantly illustrates its function. That fatty myelin acts just like insulation on a network cable, allowing nerve impulses to rapidly zip between different areas of the CNS and out to the peripheral nervous system. Now that we've got the cellular hardware down, we're on to Section 3, mapping the CNS locations. We're looking at gross anatomy now, and pay attention because this is the exact spot where students constantly lose marks on exams by mixing up the geography. Okay, the absolute most crucial thing to remember here is what I like to call the anatomical flip. Up in the brain, the gray matter, our processor, forms the outer layer. We call that the cerebral cortex, and it handles all your complex thought, emotion, and memory. The white matter cables run strictly on the inside. But look at the spinal cord. It completely flips. Down there, the gray matter sits on the inside, forming this really distinct H shape right in the center, while the white matter surrounds it on the outside. So, outer processor for the brain, inner processor for the spine. You definitely want to lock that image in your mind. And that brings us perfectly into Section 4, why the brain folds. We're about to connect the physical, macroanatomical shape of the brain directly to its functional computing power. Let's put this to the test with a practical diagnostic scenario you might actually see on your exam. Imagine region X is associated with information transmission and region Y is associated with information processing. The question is, why is region Y in the brain highly folded? We'll think back to our computer analogy. Region Y is processing info, which means we know for sure it's gray matter. But why all the complex wrinkles and folds? Here is the exact mechanical reason, and it's pretty amazing. As the brain wrinkles and folds upon itself, it physically expands its surface area. This folding is a clever trick that allows the brain to pack significantly more gray matter, more processing power, inside the very limited volume of the human skull. And more gray matter means drastically enhanced processing capabilities for all those complex thoughts, emotions, and memories. The form perfectly dictates the function. Now for our final module, Section 5, Acing Your Biology Exam. Let's take all this structural and mechanical data we just covered and turn it into practical application so you can secure that distinction. Let's trace a signal's exact chronological journey. Step 1, information is received by the CNS. Step 2, That information hits the gray matter, where it's actively processed and a decision is made. And finally, step 3, the resulting command is transmitted rapidly out via the white matter. By seeing these steps isolated like this, you can clearly track the flow, and you'll never confuse the sequence of operations. To wrap up, here are your core takeaways and the common mistakes you need to avoid. First, explicitly separate those roles. Gray processes, white transmits. Second, remember the physical location flip we mapped out. Gray is on the outside in the brain, but central in the spinal cord. Finally, honestly, the best way to study this is to act like a scientific illustrator yourself. Practice labeling these specific structures on blank diagrams and use mnemonics to lock in those functions and locations. So I'll leave you with this final question. Are you ready to map the processor and the cables on your next biology diagram? By thinking of the brain not just as biology, but as an incredible, highly structured computer network, you can confidently label any exam question they throw your way. Thank you so much for joining me today on this explainer. Keep up the focused learning, and I'll catch you next time.